What's one thing a therapist has said to you that you will never forget?
Mr.Reddit.
Unspoken expectations of others are just future resentments, edit, because this is getting so many votes and so many questions. Also so happy that me packing my brain with little quotes like this to help me and my friends is now being passed on to so many other people that need to hear it. This quote is not suggesting that you stop expecting things from others. It just means that if you do have expectations of others, it's your responsibility to make the other person aware of them. For example, if you expect your husband to clean the dishes after you've cooked dinner but you never voice those expectations to him, then eventually you will resent him for not doing it. People need to be taught how we would like them to be our friends. Then it's up to them if they want to do those things or not.
There comes a time when you have to transition from being your son's manager to his consultant.
I told this to my children as they reached that 18/college/I'm my own adult now milestone. Up to now you were expected to listen to me and do what I told you because I was the parent and you were the child. Now the best I can do, if you ask for it, is offer wisdom and advice, and it's up to you whether you take it.
That's amazing. I got to college and had no idea how to do anything for myself because my parents were so controlling/disinterested in creating self-sufficient kids. My mom was happy to keep control until I forcibly took it away from her. It's a weird thing to be 28 and have to repeatedly tell your mother, week after week, no, I am not going to break up with my boyfriend, cancel my lease, and move back home so that you have somebody to parent. No. I grew up similarly, but differently. Add to being left to feel completely reliant on not just my parents, but anyone in a position of care. My parents were older, had raised kids, were feeling done, were even in grandparent mode, but stuck with their baby in the family. The one they didn't plan for. With lifelong stories of how much better life was before me. It created a lot of feelings of instability and inferiority that I've had to spend a lot of time working on. The craziest part for me was, I was left dependent on others by their actions of not wanting to teach me to be independent. And what it resulted in was some horrifically abusive relationships, a pregnancy as a young 20-something. That I had to raise under their rules. So that created a lot of cacophony between the already tense relationship with my sisters. Who, ironically, thought I had it good. And my daughter, who knew she could run to my parents to have me be undermined. It created massive anxiety and control issues for me. It wasn't until I was in my 30s before I got out. But it wasn't to living on my own like you. Kudos. No, mine was to a relationship. In all of this, I have learned with my therapist that I am not my worst moments of myself. I am just a human who has been trying to make the best out of whatever this life has given me. Your mom wanted you back. Once I turned 18, it was like my parents couldn't get me out fast enough. But just got stuck with this child they didn't even want to begin with. One, that they still have to go above and beyond to support because without them, I have none. That's just that kind of dependency that happened. I'm too intimidated to put myself out there to make friends, especially someone to seek help from others.
When you stop making yourself small, some people will no longer fit in your life.
You're going to piss off a lot of people when you start doing what's best for you.
I've struggled with this for years without realizing, whenever I stand up for myself, I just get my feelings belittled and I'm always the one in the wrong. It really has big knock-on effects for your self-confidence across all areas of your life.
A therapist once told me, you don't have to fix everything at once. Just start somewhere. It helped me let go of the pressure to be perfect and focus on small steps. It made the bigger issues feel less overwhelming.
A similar saying that helps me immensely is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. From my progress as a person to how many chores I can do in a day, small steps are worth more than we give ourselves credit for.
The urge to binge lasts 7 minutes. I struggled with binge eating disorder for 20 years and finally sought help last January. I would get the urge to binge around the same time every night, around 9:30. I bought a little Sudoku book from the dollar store and played for 10 minutes every time I got the urge to binge. Obviously, it took a lot more than that statement for me to begin my recovery, and those 7 minutes were absolutely grueling for the first few months, but I can proudly say I've been binge-free since February 1st, 2023. Would get the urge to binge around the same time every night, around 9:30, mine said to me, think of yourself as a dog, you give a dog a treat when it sits and suddenly it really likes sitting because sitting equals food. But with a dog you scale down the reward from a big treat to a small treat to praise. It really clicked for me when I realized that I was training myself the same way. In my 20s/early 30s I was stuck working a supermarket job I fucking hated because I was still trying to finish my uni degree after 10 years. I'd work a 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. shift and reward myself in my morning tea break with a chocolate muffin. After she said that, I noticed pretty quickly that I actually started craving the muffin every day about 45 minutes before my break. I was training myself to eat muffins, but there was no trainer scaling down the reward. I also changed one of my shifts to 6 to 11 and on the first day got KFC on the drive home. Again, started absolutely craving KFC at 10:30 every morning, when I started teaching and used to reward myself on Friday nights by getting takeaway. Guess what started happening? My brain is very good at associating events and rewards. I am basically a self-training dog when it comes to food and rewards.
I've only recently discovered something like this. I used to love cooking for my ex. She could so rarely be bothered to say thank you. I think she also felt overwhelmed by it because it was a daily show of affection from me, but to her it was just food. Sapped the joy right out of my gesture, so I stopped cooking for either of us. At least without the same effort. But the other day I decided to make a simple but nice breakfast for myself. Felt really good to put in the effort and to be the one recognizing it. Better breakfasts ahead.
Depression doesn't have to be sadness or the lack of happiness. It could come in the form of unresolved anger. Made me reframe a lot of what I was trying to fix.
Literally this shit today got through to me. My husband has been trying to get it through my head, but today my best friend blatantly said he's never seen me angrier than in the past year. I felt hurt, but I didn't recognize it at all as anger, just recognizing that that is how others were perceiving my hurt. Nah, dog, I've been and am pissed as hell and don't trust anyone. I have dealt with my anger by dissociating and trying to reframe it to cope with it my whole life. I didn't want to be angry like my dad, and here I am, just as sad and pissed and in denial, fighting the ones I love while screaming there's no fight. It hurts like fucking hell to recognize, but I'm glad to see it this way now. I'm still unsure how to process this and what will be left once I do, but, yeah, this comment nails it right on the goddamn head for me. Thanks for posting it.
You show up for other people because no one ever showed up for you, and you don't ever want anyone else to feel that pain.
One of those random Tumblr screen caps that slips in between the memes and jokes and fucking ruined me was, we all become the person who would have saved us that time no one did. You didn't know how to hold emotions, so you melted down and cried for no reason all the time, and got shamed for it, told you were broken and weak, and now you're the person your friends and even strangers feel safe showing their sadness and doubt and embarrassment around. People you thought you could trust used your most sensitive vulnerabilities to destroy you to advance themselves, and now you're the person people can trust to keep personal information with discretion, always, who would never bring up a vulnerability to throw a friend under the bus. Ever. You were always told it wasn't worth trying if you weren't the best, and your interests were dismissed, and now you love nothing more than seeing people try things they love, and supporting their efforts and passions. You become the person you needed way back then, because you know how important that person is, because you didn't have someone to be that person for you. We become the person who would have saved us, when no one did.
God, I felt this the other day. Growing up I had more than a few bad experiences with boyfriends/men, and while my upbringing wasn't awful, I had next to no guidance from adults around me. Found myself in a number of bad situations. I'm lucky I got through relatively unscathed. I'm 38 now and a mother, and that's all far behind me. The other week I witnessed an absolute creep and his friend in their 50s/60s trying to chat up some obviously still school-aged girls at the beach. The girls were telling him they were underaged and to leave them alone, but he was clearly getting off on the interaction, including that part, and persisted. I nearly just kept to myself, but instead locked eyes with him. Shook my head, made it clear that I was witnessing his behavior, and stared him down till he moved on. Once he was gone the girls thanked me. There was no drama, no real confrontation, but I was shaking. Nobody ever told that dude to get lost when I was 16. But instead of resentment or shame or whatever else I might have predicted I'd feel, I felt more like a mother protecting her den. Also, since my first baby was born, I vowed to myself, to my kids, and to my partner that I will always, always, be on their side, and that home will always be their safe space. I didn't have that from my own mother, but I'm sure as hell going to be that person for my boys.
God, I felt this the other day. Growing up, I had more than a few bad experiences with boyfriends/men, and while my upbringing wasn't awful, I had next to no guidance from adults around me. Found myself in a number of bad situations. I'm lucky I got through relatively unscathed. I'm 38 now and a mother, and that's all far behind me. The other week I witnessed an absolute creep and his friend in their 50s/60s trying to chat up some obviously still school-aged girls at the beach. The girls were telling him they were underage and to leave them alone, but he was clearly getting off on the interaction, including that part, and persisted. I nearly just kept to myself, but instead locked eyes with him. Shook my head, made it clear that I was witnessing his behavior, and stared him down till he moved on. Once he was gone, the girls thanked me. There was no drama, no real confrontation, but I was shaking. Nobody ever told that dude to get lost when I was 16. But instead of resentment or shame or whatever else I might have predicted I'd feel, I felt more like a mother protecting her den. Also, since my first baby was born, I vowed to myself, to my kids, and to my partner that I will always, always, be on their side, and that home will always be their safe space. I didn't have that from my own mother, but I'm sure as hell going to be that person for my boys. I had a friend who was studying psychology say a similar thing, especially when I have issues giving myself an inch on anything and doing nothing but bully myself, wondering why my brain won't work right or anything like that. She told me that within my mind is still the child of myself, who has always been hurt, and that I'm still doing it to myself, and of course he's freaking out at someone being angry, and that I need to apologize to myself, and that I'm sorry. It's not like it magically cured everything, but it certainly gave me a step in the right direction and is good to remember. She asked if there was anything I wanted to do in my life that I no longer thought I could do. I told her that I wanted to go to law school, but that was no longer in the cards for me. She said, "You know that you can still go to law school, right? No one has to give you permission. I'll be graduating with my JD in May of next year." I doubt she understood the true impact of her simple statement that day.
Thank you all for watching. If you are interested, subscribe and watch other videos.